Hey everybody, welcome back to Fusspot Gaming. My name is Caleb.
I'm Summer.
And I'm Stormy.
We're here to bring you a brand new video today on our grand return to the YouTube scene. Yay. We're here to talk about our fave games of 2021. Now that the new year has been rung in, we are ready to tell you exactly what we thought of last year's games, since we couldn't tell you during the year. Starting off on our list, on the number one spot. Please be aware this is not a numbered list.
Yeah, in no particular order.
Yeah. Metroid Dread.
Oh, so obvious.
I feel like everyone saw this one coming. But as far as I'm concerned, it's essentially a modern classic.
In case you have been living under a rock for the past couple of months, Metroid Dread is an action-adventure game that was developed by Mercury Steam and Nintendo EPD, and it is exclusive to the Nintendo Switch, where you are controlling Samus, and she is investigating a source of mysterious transmission on the planet ZDR. It kept the side-scrolling gameplay of the previous 2D Metroid games, but it incorporated stealth elements and kind of horror elements with the mysterious Emmy that are tracking you down.
Mm-hmm.
Scary.
And I feel like after this, Metroid Prime 4 might be in a more tenuous position, because before this, basically people had no expectations of what a modern Metroid game should kind of look like.
Right.
The last one was Metroid Prime 3 on the Wii. That was like the last main console game. And now they're just coming out with this and immediately knocking it out of the park. So, you know, can Metroid Prime 4 live up to that hype, that expectation now? Like a full 3D Metroid game, can that be as good as this 2D, 3D combination?
Well, and we all know the development has been strenuous and tense at best.
Is it coming? We don't even know. We haven't had any updates in a while.
And the last update wasn't good, so... But, I mean...
But then they threw this, Dread at us unexpectedly.
Out of nowhere. I mean, this had like a 1 month
We could, turn around tomorrow and there's an announcement. We just don't know.
I certainly hope so. Especially if it's as good as this game. I mean, to be honest, when it first was announced, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. But after playing through it, after seeing all of the upgrades that it continuously throws at you, never feels like it's lagging. The chases with the Emmy are actually great. The locations that you go through on the planet ZDR are great. The first time I stepped foot in the water zone, Berenia, and you see the crazy water falling and the storm outside, and it's like beautiful and kind of haunting almost. And every zone, in my opinion, is kind of like that. And it feels like they just put their best foot forward with this game. Even story-wise. I mean, doing a direct sequel to Fusion after so many years, but also doing it well, I don't think many people expected that.
Pretty gutsy.
Yeah, I mean...
And they killed it.
Especially, big kudos to the developers of Samus Returns who pulled this off. I mean, this is great.
Yeah. I haven't played much of it. I've played a little bit, but what I did see, I was loving. I love that Nintendo is finally upping the ante and bringing back the higher difficulty games.
Yes.
We have been dying, waiting for it. No offense to
Kirby's Epic Yarn,
Woolly World and all that nonsense. They're fun, but it's not a real challenge like it used to be. So this was nice. And I really loved the 3D scenes, integrated with the 2D. It was seamless. It felt like God of War-esque, where they're just cinematically dropping you right into a scene. It was great. I'm loving it.
And I think that this game single-handedly washed away the bad taste in players' mouth after they played Other M, Metroid Other M. Because in that game, Samus was sort of, shall we say, demure. And that is not typically how one is portraying Samus. And in this game, they did her right. I mean, they every cutscene that shows her, she is a badass through and through. She's almost never afraid of these bosses. I mean, she walks right up, has a charge beam going and shoots it right into Kraid's mouth. She just doesn't care at this point in her career. And I respect that. I respect a good girl boss. You know what I mean?
Oh, we know.
Girl boss energy, yeah. Actually, my deluxe edition was canceled by a certain blue big box store that you could also buy groceries from. So it's hard out there for Nintendo collectors, but I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, although I did finally pick up just the standard version, so it's now in my clutches, and I'm gonna tear into that pretty soon here. But I guess the best that I can contribute is just a piece of mini trivia that Dread was actually conceived, and the idea for it was being tossed around for the Nintendo DS back in the mid-2000s, but it was actually canceled because of technical limitations. But then when, in the 2010s, I guess, when commentators and YouTubers and fans and everybody started expressing their interest in a new 2D Metroid game, basically Nintendo took note and was like, oh, I guess they want this again. And then they pumped out Samus Returns, which was great for the 3DS if you haven't played it. And that's when they were like, all right, well, I think, this Metroid train is back on. Let's do this thing.
And we have this one that's already half done.
Yeah.
Like, probably,
exactly, yeah. Well, definitely the idea for it, the conception was there. So
Well, it makes total sense because around that period in time, that's when all those Metroidvania-like games were starting to crop up, like those 2D, like Hollow Knight, stuff like that, Ori and the Blind Forest. I mean, they were everywhere, and people were like, we just want a classic Metroid game, like a real one. And Nintendo was like, we got you covered. So, yeah.
Oh, so
definite easy pick for our fave game of 2021. Next up on our list is a more controversial pick, Deltarune Chapter 2.
Oh, here we go. Well, okay.
Not quite a game.
Now, hold up. We know this isn't a full game, but let me justify its spot on the list.
Go right ahead.
So Deltarune is a role-playing game developed by Toby Fox, and you as a player, you control a teenage human named Chris who's destined to save the world with their classmates Susie and Rousey. And during the quest to seal the Dark Fountains, the group may meet the inhabitants of the Dark World, some of which try to stop you. Basically, it's kind of an alternate reality, at least this is my impression, alternate reality to Toby Fox's first game, Undertale. So
a variant, you might say.
Like a Majora's Mask type situation.
Exactly, yeah. So Undertale is one of my favorite games, certainly one of my favorite indies. So really anything more that we can get from Toby Fox is always most welcome. But gosh, Deltarune Chapter 2, I mean, it's been a couple of years since we got the first chapter.
Yeah,
and
I think too.
I've just been clamoring ever since, but I just really love the sort of like, to me, it's almost like Toy Story, like 90s nostalgic vibes, because it's like you and your classmates going into a broom closet and falling into another world where all of the toys and things in the closet come to life in a sense. So, it was just hilarious from start to finish. We got a lot more background and lore in Chapter 2 on just what the heck is going on, especially with Chris. And, the ending from Chapter 1 kind of left us hanging as to what is going on, and I think we got a little bit more insight into that. But the dialogue, absolutely hilarious. I think I took 1,000 screenshots playing through the game. And it is short. According to howlongtobeat.com, it's about 4.5 to 8 hours, but it is just packed through those hours with humor and interesting and unfolding storyline, funny mini games, like exciting, challenging battles, tons of mysteries that you can find out. It also, I have not done this because I'm not a monster, but if you are so inclined, you can look on the YouTubes, look up the Snowgrave route. It's kind of similar to the genocide route, seemingly, of Undertale. But honestly, it might even be more disturbing.
I think it is.
It's basically Chris kind of
manipulating
and controlling another character named Noelle, and Noelle is extremely freaking powerful. If you watch this, it's crazy. But yeah, I think despite it being short, it left a big impression, and I just had to add it to favorite games. I know it's just a chapter, but honestly, it was that good.
Yeah, they did an anniversary stream, Toby Fox did, where he was playing Undertale, and I just had a sneaking suspicion. I was like, it's been a while since Chapter 1 of Deltarune. I know he's going to do something or hint or something. And sure enough, dropped an announcement at the very end saying that it was coming out. And I think it was like 2 weeks from the date or something like that, very soon.
Yeah, it was a quick turnaround.
Oh, you sneaky old fox.
Exactly, just like him. So I loved getting to see that. And it is free. He straight up said 2020 has been hard on everyone. I'm making this free. Y'all enjoy yourselves type situation.
An angel.
So download it right now. It's on basically everything for free. And if you played Chapter 1 or even just Undertale, you know about the huge Earthbound references, and there's tons of nostalgia and stuff like that. And it's also like previous games where you can spare enemies, you can kill enemies. The different thing about Chapter 2 versus Chapter 1 is that if you spare enemies, you can recruit them and they come back to your village and you can interact with them.
Oh, so it's like a town building thing?
Yeah, kind of. It's funny. And at the end, they can, you know, be of help to you in certain ways if you do spare them. But it actually gets harder, like your enemies get harder if you do continue to spare enemies, which is kind of interesting. Makes sense. There's a lot more bullet hell, and combat was difficult.
It was. I died a lot. Now, to be fair, I'm not good at the genre. You know, bullet hell. It's not my best genre, shall we say? But it was difficult. I died a lot, but it was still really fun.
Yeah, I died quite a few times. I really liked, too, they did a lot of different kinds of battle. If you look at Undertale, it's pretty much just bullet hell, 100% bullet hell, with other weird stuff, but, you know, moving around, avoiding stuff. But in this one, you did some interesting, I don't want to spoil or anything here, but, you know, 3D almost, 2D almost, it was confusing, but moving around physically your character in a real space, not just, you know, a framed black hole. Yeah, it was very interesting. And the characters, super cute. We got some of the same old ones as before, but we got Birdly and Noelle and just like some interesting folks who came out to show.
Well, and because, you know, they have these different routes, their paths change a lot depending on your actions, which I'm excited to see how that plays out in the 3rd chapter, because you can drastically alter, I mean, seemingly, the course of the game. So, I don't know, it should be interesting to see how it plays out.
Once again, look up that Snowgrave route.
Definitely.
It is a wild ride. So just having watched that, you totally end up in a different situation by the end of that. So I'm kind of wondering where that leads Chapter 3. And Susie and Noelle, OTP, forever. Dialogue, hilarious, as Stormy said. And the villain, just a killer.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. I want a cosplay.
It very reminiscent of Mettaton, but almost amplified if that's possible somehow.
And just, you know, not necessarily 100, like, you think of a lot of villains and you think, oh, they're just cruel all the time. They're just cruel. And you see a lot of just kind of like ambivalence with this villain. They're kind of just like, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm going to go over here now.
And changing their mind and like some confusion. It's really funny.
Not necessarily like 100% of the time trying to kill you. Sometimes just kind of, you know, hanging out. Let's see what happens here. I thought it was really funny.
There's also a lot of mysteries that you can look up and get into.
Toby Fox loves a hidden boss.
Most definitely. There is a very crazy hidden boss. You can look that up too. We won't spoil it too much, but you do have to interact with them at some point. And if you make the right choices, you can further that storyline and eventually fight them as a hidden boss. And it is wild. I'm sure.
Yeah, I've seen video of the boss battle with... I know who you're talking about. Yeah, it seems almost impossible. It's very difficult.
I don't think I'd be able to do it, but I love watching YouTubes.
Yeah.
The YouTubes. So.
The YouTubes, as it were. Yeah, wonderful game. Just can't wait to see where it goes.
All smiles.
All smiles all around.
Makes total sense to me. Next up on our list is Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Now, might seem like a bit of a cheat because it came out in Japan a couple years ago in the form of 2 separate games, but this is the first time us in the West get to enjoy it to the fullest this year. So it's going on our list because, frankly, I enjoyed it a lot. In case you don't know, Ace Attorney is a franchise centered around a series of visual novel adventure hybrid games developed and published by Capcom. The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is a duology collection of the Great Ace Attorney Adventures and the Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. Essentially, it follows the story of Ryunosuke Naruhodo and his story to rise and become the greatest defense lawyer of all time. At least, he thinks so. But he's doing it, essentially, to honor the memory of his best friend who is going to go west and learn from Great Britain how to become a great defense attorney because this was Japan's first foray into defense Like that before this point, if you were convicted or if you were accused, you just got dragged in front of a judge. Prosecutors over here, you're guilty, I guess. No defense for you. Go to jail. After certain tragedy, certain Mia Fey tragedy happens, I'm sure everyone saw it coming anyway. You're accused of the murder, as all Ace Attorney pro tags are, again and again and again. But of course, through the grand deductions of the great detective Herlock Sholmes,
You don't say. You
you
don't say.
are cleared of all charges, and he essentially becomes a new mechanic for you throughout the game through his dances of deduction.
Oh
and
my.
frankly, it's the most fun the investigation sections in these games have ever been, because it's essentially Sholmes taking little pieces of evidence and going off on wild tangents the entire time and being like, clearly, you are a Russian revolutionary and you've got a former famous Russian ballerina hidden inside your trunk based off of you've got shears in your hand and you got your hand in your pocket. And that's all I need to know this. So then you have to sort of go along and like shore up a little bit of his logical issues. And when you do that, you unravel the true mystery and what's going on. And it's all done through this really snappy, sort of cute, literal dance where Sholmes and Ryunosuke sort of dance around each other. They got the spotlights coming down on the criminals as they deduce. It's great. I love it.
I've got a lot of questions.
I love it.
My first question is not Sherlock Holmes like royalty-free, open source.
Okay,
Can't you just use that? So why did they change the name?
So here's the problem with Conan Doyle estate. In the West, you are allowed to use any depiction of Sherlock Holmes that you want, as long as he doesn't show character growth or emotion.
What?
Because those stories are not yet royalty-free. The ones where he showed real emotion and changed and grew as a person, those are still owned by the Conan Doyle estate. So you are not allowed to have a depiction of Sherlock Holmes who has emotions, who shows regret and growth. So they had to change his name to Herlock Sholmes to bring it west.
That's really funny.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, they did a really good job. The localization is pretty much perfect. I didn't notice any issues. It translated really well, although I will have to say that if you are sensitive to a lot of overt racism, there's a lot of that in this game, because this is a period of history where the Japanese people were not liked in Great Britain. So you will get a lot of Nipponese where they'll just say it outright, like, oh, we can't trust this hunchbacked foreigner. It's like, oh my God, these people are so terrible.
That's awful.
But Ryunosuke regularly puts them in their place through just being a great lawyer.
Right, well, I also think an important contextual element is that it is developed by a Japanese developer.
Naturally.
So, you know.
It's handled in a way where they're not offended by it themselves. So that won't work in your
Or
house.
at least addressing it from their own point of view and saying, this was pretty...
This was our reality for a
effed
while.
up and it happened.
Hopefully it's, improved. I haven't been to Japan, so.
The new prosecutor, Baruch von Zieks, is amazing. He's got a long cape. He looks like Dracula. He pours wine in the courtroom.
Yes!
He slams his leg on the table when he gets upset. And he's like, pardon the discourtesy of thrashing my steel Wellington around like a brute. It's like, oh my God. He's so extra, but it kind of works because his whole persona is like the Reaper of the Bailey, where it doesn't matter if he wins a case or not, because everyone he's ever prosecuted, whether they've been acquitted or not, have died in some mysterious circumstance. They've fallen to their death, died in a fire, strangled, something happened.
So we've got a killer lawyer
So
here.
it doesn't matter. So that's why the first time...
He's like, I'm going to kill him anyway.
Ryu goes up against him, he's like, oh, no. No matter what I do, my client might just be screwed.
Oh, that's great.
But it's great. And even he shows some character growth throughout the events of both games. Like, he kind of feels like Miles Edgeworth plus Dracula plus someone vaguely racist. And you mix that all together, but he does get better on all three of those fronts as time goes on.
Good.
But it's definite character growth for everyone involved. And I think they handled the whole colorful cast of jurors, witnesses, inspectors, because you even got Tobias Gregson from a lot of the short stories of Sherlock Holmes, as well as Gina Lestrade, and even a couple historical figures like the author Soseki Natsume, who wrote the famous short story, I Am a Cat. And he is one of the defendants for one of the cases. He gets accused of murder.
And that's so funny.
But it's great. It's great. I love the entire thing, start to finish, is probably my favorite Ace Attorney story. So what more could you ask for than that?
I need it right now.
I know. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but the reviews it's been getting are amazing. And it was actually on my list to buy back when we had plans to go to Japan before the bad thing happened.
Yeah, same here.
Before the bad thing happened in 2020, but I'm glad I can get it now, so that's cool. I also saw that the game also had an assist feature, so that if you hit a dead end, or if this is your first Ace Attorney game, that you can kind of get some help, which I think is awesome, because we recently recorded a video about accessibility and features like this, and I think it's always appreciated, you know, whenever games include something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's called story mode. It literally just lets you go through everything without touching a button.
That's
you can
so
just
cool.
Play through
like
it
a little
all.
movie.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love it.
We'd love to see it. Next up on our list is It Takes Two.
It Takes Two.
And I think Summer needs to take the lead on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this game. So It Takes Two is an action-adventure platform game developed by Hazelight Studios and published by Electronic Arts, EA Games. I love this game. I love watching other people play it and work together on the puzzles. I made Stormy and Caleb play it together just so we could get the footage. And I was so excited setting it all up. Just, it can make people...
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
It can make people get a little bit frustrated, but I think they did well. I mean, I didn't see any snarkiness.
A few goofs here and there, you know.
Which you'll probably be seeing at this very moment.
Yeah, it's a really fun game. The bosses kind of remind me of Psychonauts, and some of the puzzles do as well. And the controls feel just like natural, and it just feels like
very buttery smooth.
Yeah,
correct.
very buttery.
As you go along too, you get different items. Like I think the girl wife character made of wood, she gets a nail gun type situation. And you basically just have to use these items in conjunction to solve puzzles. And it's super fun. Like, you know, Caleb's character would be stuck somewhere, and from across the room, you'd have to shoot something to get him free. It's super great. The story, my only negative things to say really is that the story can be a little weird at times.
It was definitely strange. Especially, look, Dr. Hakim. I don't know what was up with that.
I don't know.
But he's an evil, evil book.
Like, to say the least. And I mean, we were playing this at first because it kind of, it centers on a child and it's about toys. So we're like, having never played this, maybe this is sort of like kids co-op game. And then you suck the eyeballs out of the vacuum and you're like, no, this is most definitely
it's like
not.
Toy Story meets God of War up in here. I don't know what's going on, but
it gets unexpectedly vicious.
Yeah,
for sure.
You, up to this point, you think it's like sort of like a Pixar thing.
Right.
It's like, they're going to learn to grow together, and no, they're just going to murder things, apparently.
Yeah.
This poor innocent vacuum who just wanted to not have its bowels clogged. Horrifying.
I know. It's kind of fun too because while we were playing it, you do have to work together, and it basically encourages you to communicate, couch co-op style, like, hey, you go there and I'll do this. But you can kind of goof on each other a little bit too. Like you have to hold open a door and then you can slam it on them or something, kind of.
I mean, I did do that to Stormy one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all are too cranky.
I know. But I also because I'll just be honest, Caleb is better at gaming than me in basically every way. But being someone who is at a lower level, shall we say, I still felt like you kept up with the other person because that is the name of the game, really. Like, you can't go too far or leave the other person in the dust because that's kind of the whole point of the game. So that's kind of cool. Like, it encourages everyone to work together, and because the controls are so smooth, I don't know, it just played really well, and it was really fun.
In the words of Dark Souls, jolly cooperation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, another cool thing, too, about this game is if you buy a copy, now, I don't know if this is true on Xbox, I would assume, but on PlayStation, you only have to buy one copy, and your friend online can just join you. So you don't even have to have two copies of the game, which is nice. Really nice, yeah. So if you don't have somebody at home you can play with, you can find somebody online.
That's crazy, because even nowadays couch co-op is becoming sort of a lost art.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's online only.
They're
so
kind
finding
of-
like a real co-op game,
Yeah.
it's really nice.
Why I read too, you can't even play this game by yourself. You can only play it online or split screen co-op.
Well, isn't that like the last game they made, A Way Out? You can only
Yes.
play
Yes.
that
Yep.
two-player? Yeah.
And I love that game too. I do think it was, I mean, obviously more serious tones. Not to say that It Takes Two doesn't address some serious topics, but just kind of darker, I think, in general. You're escaping from prison. But yeah, this, I think, performs way better than A Way Out even did. And I was impressed by A Way Out. So, one of my favorites for sure.
Absolutely. Next up on our list is Little Nightmares 2. Now, we played Little Nightmares 1 together, and we also played this one together.
Yep.
And both were quite the experience, but I think the second one definitely had us more, shall we say, enthralled than the first
We
one
were
did.
definitely more engaged, I think, in the second one. Well, the first one, it was kind of new on the scene. You didn't really understand exactly what was going on until you kind of got into it.
Yeah.
The second one, you immediately go in at least knowing a little something, and so you're already coming in with a better understanding and kind of getting that prequel vibe.
Oh, yeah. And in case you guys don't know what Little Nightmares 2, it's essentially an puzzle platform horror game developed by Tarsier Studios and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment. It is the prequel to 2017's Little Nightmare. Now, I mean, there's so much to talk about. With all of the creepy aesthetics of the game, the ambiance, like from the first thing of you waking up alone in the forest on top of the TV, that you're immediately like, what? Why do I have a bag over my head? What's going on? And then as you make your way through towards the hunter and all the creepy, like, hung up bodies, and you can see him in the background, like, in his cabin, tearing through things. And at one point you have to rescue someone from, like, his cellar, who happens to be, surprise, surprise, the protag from the first game, who happens to just be there.
Wow.
It's honestly kind of cute at first, because you have a little button where you can call them over, and they can help with jumps, catch you, stuff like that. You can even hold their hand as you run along away from stuff. So at first it feels a little more wholesome than the first game. But then, as the game goes on, more things happen. You're put in more pressure, more dangerous situations. Your partner is constantly being kidnapped by every monster in the game. I'm pretty sure the doctor, the dolls, the thin man, the bullies, the teacher, don't they all kidnap her at one point? So she's just bad at not being kidnapped. But,
Yeah.
But
every time it seems like she gets a little bit more off.
Yeah.
Because there are times throughout the game where you're playing and it's sort of normal and you outwit a monster and you feel really good. And then she's just like sitting in front of the incinerator where someone was just burned, warming her hands. And you're like, oh my God. Or you'll be over here doing a puzzle where she can't get to. But then as you come back over, she's breaking the fingers of a mannequin. And you're like, oh no, what happened to you?
Yeah, like you said, it starts off wholesome and you're kind of trying to protect this person. And then as you go, you're sort of like, are they okay though?
Yeah, probably not. They're getting kidnapped by many monsters and things are happening. And especially if you know the context of the first game with the gnawing hunger, you know that things could turn bad at any point, really. You never know. But really, I think the puzzles are really creative and good. And a lot of times they're creepy where you have to take someone's shoe that's just been left there and their clothes are just hanging there from a TV. And you have to pick up their shoe and throw it at a doorbell or something and make someone run over or hurry, run over here, turn on the electric switch to kill the viewer before he can get you. It's like, these are all things that would be in other games, but they're much more morbid and dark. And, you know, because you usually wouldn't expect a cute little puzzle game where you're 2 inches tall to be like murdering people.
Right. I think the visuals and the perspective has a lot to do with
the scale,
the atmosphere, you know, because you are so small in this huge world. So you feel powerless immediately. And
well, yeah,
everything is a struggle.
It definitely feels like you were dropped into a world that wasn't made for you. It was made for all of these weird giant creatures, which could be symbolic in a way, but I kind of enjoyed it. I like the creepy visuals. I like the way that they portrayed it all, and I like that they were able to basically tell a whole story without saying a single word. No dialogue at all.
No dialogue. Yeah, I mean, the ambiance, the atmosphere was unparalleled. I thought it was great, and
We won't spoil the ending.
No, we won't spoil the ending, but the ending
It had us yelling.
We all played it together, and we were just yelling, and like in disbelief. Like
after an entire adventure, it all came down to one moment, and it was disastrous.
Yeah.
Disastrous. That's the best word for it.
A lot happened.
I mean, when you start the game,
you know it's not going to be a happy ending.
Right. You know it's not going to end well, but it really doesn't.
You would sort of hope it would be more like an ending from the first game where, okay, it's not happy, but she gets away, and then, she's powerful now, and she can maybe take care of herself in this crazy world. Whereas in the second game, things don't go that great.
Well, I think too, I mean, not to get spoilery, but a lot of the first game is just that feeling of being alone. And everyone else who is there is only trying to kill you. But you are given someone in the second game. And then through, he gets kidnapped and all kinds of other crazy stuff happens. And then you're alone again. Mm-hmm. And,
it makes it worse, I think. Because in the first game, you've always been alone, except for, like you said, everyone trying to kill you. So when you do have that person and then they're gone again, it feels worse.
Yeah, it does.
Especially
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. Because there are moments where you can press the button when they're not there anymore, and you'll just call out to no one. It's so sad. He's alone now. He's got no one else. And he's got the best collection of hats in the entire game. I mean, he's got like a sailor hat. He's got the postman's hat. He's got the mummy hat.
Oh, yeah.
He's got like tons of different customizable things that you can find throughout the game, and I love those.
Stylish,
those little touches.
I think being able to get the atmosphere and the vibes, I guess, the understanding how the characters might be feeling, the loneliness, with no dialogue is really impressive.
Yeah. I agree.
Really well done. And it makes me sad that this seems to be the cap on the Little Nightmares franchise. I think the developers have said they're moving on to other things. Because I would have liked to see maybe a third game, but I mean, in my opinion, it was a good way to cap it off.
I think so too.
For sure. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what they do next.
Yeah. Because if it's anything like this, it should be good.
I hope it's still spooky.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so next up on our list, speaking of depressing, is Nier Replicant. Now, I know you guys haven't played this, but... Nope. Oh, what a game. This is basically... Okay, Nier Replicant was previously only released in Japan. It is technically a prequel to the critically acclaimed masterpiece Nier Automata, developed by Toys Logic and published by Square Enix. But it is only a prequel in the most loose sense, because Automata takes place like 1,400 years later. Whoa. So it's not really like a direct continuation of the stories. But this whole game is sort of part of a genre that I would classify as beautifully depressing, where it is really well made, it's well written, the music is great, the soundtrack is excellent. I listen to that on repeat sometimes, but it is just not a game to play if you are already feeling bad in one way or another, because let me just read out the opening narration from the main character. People say the world is dying. Populations continue to fall while plague and disease run rampant. If that wasn't enough, monsters called shades now roam the land as well, threatening our very lives. But I can't let any of that distract me. It's not easy for a pair of kids to live in a world like this, but the villagers have been kind to us, and despite everything, somehow I feel like we're going to be okay. And that sort of sets the tone for the sort of main thrust of the game, is that you play as the main character, who is sort of like your typical bishi, pretty boy anime protag. And he is helping his sister, Yona, who is suffering from a mysterious disease called the Black Scrawl. And throughout the entire game, you're essentially on this quest, this Ocarina of Time style quest, where you're trying to collect all the sealed verses, because that through the power of the sealed verses, you can save her, you can fight off the Black Scrawl, and you can maybe even save the world in the process.
Wow.
Through the power of this book that you find, the Grimoire of Ice, who becomes a member of your party. But throughout the game, as you continue on, you sort of realize that's not gonna happen. The rug is sort of pulled out from under you halfway through, and you realize it's not that kind of game. This is not a save the world kind of game. This is if you're lucky, you can save one person kind of thing.
Is this Rogue One?
Worse than that.
Oh.
It's worse than that. Because it's like, I don't know how spoilery we want to get here, but let's just say there's not a lot of hope for most of these characters, but the ride itself was so interesting, and I don't know, just the way they presented it really caught me in a way that even Automata didn't. Like, I played Automata when it first came out, and I played it for like 5-10 hours, and it never really grabbed me, so I sort of just skipped over it. But this game, almost immediately, I was like, oh, like, this is good. Like, it's fun to play. It's interesting. The characters are fun. I recognized a lot of the voice actors from, like, AI Somnium Files. Like, the main character is Ota from AI Somnium Files. There's a lot of weird Japanese stuff in this game, too, where it's like, one of the main female characters is dressed in nothing but lingerie for some reason, and there's no reason given. It's just like the book character is constantly calling her a hussy because she dresses in nothing but lingerie. And she never gives a reason. She just swears. She's just like, you, I'm out of here.
Oh my god, we love it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great game. It's a weird game. It's created by a guy named Yoko Taro, who, if you know anything about him, a lot of his games are like this, where they're great, but they're not happy. And it's even got a whole system set up where there's ending A. And ending A is sort of the typical ending where it's like, you saved your sister, hooray! And then if you go back and reload that save, it starts about midway through the game. And you're like, what? So you play through it again, and then you realize, oh, the bosses, who suddenly in the first playthrough, you couldn't understand what they were saying. They're talking, and you can see their subtitles. You can see what they're saying.
Wind Waker style.
Yeah, and you're like, wait a minute. And they're speaking like people. And you're like, oh no. Did we just,
murder?
Yeah, and then suddenly it's like, oh, are all the bosses like this? And then then it recontextualizes everything and continues on down that path towards ending C, D, E, and it just gets worse. But it's it's fun to play. It's great. It's got great combat mechanics. The word edit system I loved. It was super helpful for grinding and all that RPGs are horrible for. And it felt like you were playing like Bayonetta or something. It was great. I enjoyed it a lot, despite wanting to cry.
Aww. Kind of reminds me of Undertale. With the whole, when you play it again, you get some interesting dialogue situations.
Yeah. But, I mean, definitely one to check out if you are in that sort of me up fam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If you're in the right headspace.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So next up on our list is a dual spot. Persona 5 Strikers and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Now, a lot of people might say this is cheating, but they're both warrior-style spin-off from their respective franchises that are done extremely well, in my opinion. So, Stormy, why don't you start off with Age of Calamity?
Yeah, sure. So, Age of Calamity is hack and slash developed by Omega Force, published by Koei Tecmo in Japan, and then Nintendo internationally. So, if you are familiar at all with Breath of the Wild, which you probably all are, it's set 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild. So it is when Link and Princess Zelda are trying to gather allies across Hyrule to fend off Calamity Ganon the first time. And basically all of Calamity Ganon and his goons are attempting to revive him and destroy the kingdom naturally. So if you've played the other Hyrule Warriors, the original, you know that it's kind of a crossover thing. So Age of Calamity is mixing the world and the characters of Legend of Zelda with the gameplay of Koei Tecmo's Dynasty Warriors series. And honestly, I really love this game.
Yeah.
Kind of a surprise for me because I wasn't really a prior fan of the Dynasty Warriors style gameplay, the hack and slash genre, but I loved Breath of the Wild so much that I just wanted more of it. And so it was kind of my first intro into that style of gameplay. Really, any more that we can get of Zelda and Breath of the Wild, sign me up. So I feel like this game was definitely successful in converting me over to the hack and slash genre because once I got into it, even though I started it for Breath of the Wild, I was like, man, this is really fun.
And it worked surprisingly well with the style because you think it's going to be kind of weird where it's like Link is taking on hundreds of moblins at once when in Breath of the Wild he takes on maybe 2 enemies at a time. But it works surprisingly well. It feels like Link in his prime before he got shoved into a shrine. You know what I mean?
For sure, yeah. I mean, because when he wakes up, that's when we start the game, and we only get vague flashbacks of what life was like before that. And so being able to experience that moment, I think that's a little bit what Breath of the Wild was missing for me, is we all wanted to play those moments where you're at the peak of your game, and you kind of get to do that here, which is really cool. It's just so fulfilling. If you have a bad day at work or something, you just fire the game and mash some baddies into oblivion. But even beyond the gameplay style, I just really loved the backstory that we got, the prequel kind of vibes, kind of alternate reality that we get to see play out.
A lot of people did not like that aspect. Personally, I had no problem with it.
I really liked it. That's why it's on the list. But again, I think it's just because I just really loved Breath of the Wild, and the parts that we didn't get to see are parts that I really wanted to see. Exactly. And I think this kind of fills that void. I know probably not everyone will love it, because if you liked Breath of the Wild for specifically what it was and you really don't enjoy hack and slash, but you want the lore, maybe just watch a playthrough. But I didn't know I would like it so much, and when I got into it, it was really fun, and more lore always makes me happy. And this game also made me want to complete everything. I turned into a completionist because it's that fun. I don't know, it just has this really satisfying gameplay feedback loop where you get more stuff and you get new characters. And speaking of the characters, they're just,
some of them are crazy.
They're ridiculous. They are so ridiculous. I mean, spoilers ahead, but Hestu, Master Koga, the Great Fairy. I mean, it's just so weird. Yeah. But it's like fun and
I love
off the wall.
I love it. The only one they missed, in my opinion, was Cass. They should have had him.
Oh, that would have been fun. You're right.
With his accordion. But, you know, can't get it what you want all the time.
And I mean, the egg.
Yeah, it's so cute.
The egg itself.
Oh my god, every time he showed up in a cutscene, he was so cute.
So cute. I mean, I just love the ability to pick up and play a mission or two if you're short on time and really just kind of hack and slash and call it a day. I don't know. It was just really fun, and I think I'm a new convert to the gameplay.
And Persona 5 Strikers is also an amazing game. It was an action role-playing game developed by Omega Force and Peace Studio and published by Sega. It's a crossover between Dynasty Warriors franchise and Atlus's RPG Persona 5. It's set 6 months after the event of the original Persona 5 and follows Joker and the rest of the Phantom Thieves as they investigate a series of mysterious events involving people across Japan. So unlike Age of Calamity, this is a direct sequel, not a prequel. So it's interesting how they're taking these ideas and completely spinning off into new stories of their own. And I think this is one of the better examples of them doing it, because it feels like a direct continuation. It feels like it was written by the same people. And it has all of the original cast, obviously reprising their roles. The music is great. I loved the ambush theme, Axe to Grind. I would listen to that on repeat as playing through it. It's so good. And the whole thing is set... The entire idea is that you are not just investigating across Japan, you are doing a summer vacation. So you and your group of little friends, you go to Sojiro, who is essentially your adopted father, and say, listen, we have no transportation. What are we going to do? And he's like, listen, I know someone. I'm going to get you an RV. And suddenly, you and your friends are off on your little RV trip across the country. And it's so awesome, all this, because they replace the typical Persona style school schedule and all that with like interesting side content from the actual vacation. So it's like you barbecuing on the beach or you stopping off for a ferry to go to Osaka and like eat stuff there, or you going off to a hot spring, you going to a traditional Tanabata festival in your yukata and like fishing for goldfish and all that. I love it.
Wow.
Because it essentially hit me pretty hard playing through it, because I was like, listen, I want to go to Japan. So
that's a whole nother video.
Yeah,
video coming soon.
Exactly. So it hit me in a certain way where it's like, I need this more in my life, to be honest. And it's interesting the way that they sort of played off the gameplay of Persona 5, because if you know how Persona 5 is, it's a turn-based game. It's not live action. But the way they did it was that You can switch between personas if you're Joker. You can switch to other characters, and you can also sort of stop time in the middle of combat to choose which action you want to do against a huge group of enemies, where you can buff them and debuff them. So it's really interesting what they've done, in my opinion. And the story itself, they added in a couple of new Phantom Thieves, like Sophia, humanity's companion, a weird little AI girl who follows you around. And honestly, she was pretty interesting. I thought she was going to be annoying at first when she was first introduced, because it's like, oh.
And also, like, how dare you add to the pack? Like, we've got a solid group here.
Another amnesiac persona hero. Here we go. But you know what? It worked. It worked. And Zenkichi, who is also a new addition, is interesting because he's like a cop, and he's in his 30s, 40s. He's got a daughter. So he gets dragged into this whole investigation because he's investigating you. And then through the events of the game, he becomes that agent of rebellion against the system that he used to hold up, in a way. And I think it was a great addition to the cast overall. And naturally, the game ends in traditional Persona fashion. Gotta fight a god at the end. Everyone knew that was coming. But yeah, I mean, really, really well done for both counts, in my opinion. Age of Calamity game.
Also, Caleb and I are going to be filming a comparison video between the Hyrule Warriors games. So click the like button if you want to see that. We're going to be filming that pretty soon.
Exactly.
Stay tuned.
Next up on our list is Psychonauts 2. Now, this was a long-awaited one for me. Psychonauts 2 is a platform adventure game developed by Double Fine and published by Xbox Game Studios, and technically kickstarted as well. Players guide Raz on a journey through the minds of friends and foes on a quest to defeat a murderous psychic. And right off the bat, when you first start, the literal first area in the game, it gives you the feeling of The Incredibles to me. Like, didn't it to you when you first started playing?
Yeah, it's the whole spy thing.
Yeah, the spy thing, sort of, where it's also superhero-y in the background, sort of a James Bond homage in a way. And also, throughout the game, I was getting the feeling of, it's got the Tim Burton art style direction, but it feels like it was directed by Pixar. And I mean that in, like, the best way.
Yeah, 100%.
The way the characters interact, it all feels very natural. The new characters are weird and interesting, like Agent Forsyth and the kids.
Oh my god.
The Psychonauts in Training, who Raz immediately falls foul of.
Yeah.
These kids
steal
are
his clothes.
Horrible. But, I mean, the entire game, every level was so unique and interesting, and I was always like, oh, I wonder what the next level is going to look like. I wonder what the soundtrack's going to be. I wonder what new power I'm going to get around the corner. And it always, I don't know, it just felt fun to play, the entire way through. And I know you haven't beaten it yet, but you're close.
No,
right?
yeah, I'm close. I actually just got to a message that was basically like, you might want to finish up any loose ends before you get to this part. And so I said, okay. And I went ahead with whatever this last era is of the game. But yeah, I've been so impressed. It's huge. I at first thought we were just going to be inside the spy area and then occasionally go on missions. There's all these huge areas with all kinds of collectibles. That's the other thing, too, is that I'm not normally like 100% type of person. Like, I don't collect everything necessarily. I'm more focused on the story, but the collectibles are so weird and
the side challenge markers, the figments.
I've got to get that other half of the brain. Yes. I've got to get those hat tags and for the hat box.
The emotional baggage.
The emotional baggage.
You gotta sort the emotional baggage.
Like, if you see a crying duffel bag, you need to help it. Yes. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly.
So I've had a ton of fun. Like, everyone I talk to, they say the last thing that I'm expecting them to say. Thing. Yeah, it's been wild. It's been a fun ride. Definitely a one-up on Psychonauts original.
I would say so. I mean, major props for not only living up to the hype, but also probably surpassing it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because that's not easy to do, especially when you're talking about a game from way back in the day where you're trying to sequel it. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, especially when it's been so heavily scrutinized by everyone. Because, I mean, Tim Schafer himself was scrutinized from his last project, Broken Age. So people were like, can you really deliver on this? But he did.
Show enough, he did.
And good job to all the folks at Double Fine. And I honestly hope that this is a sign that the Psychonauts series will continue.
Oh, I would love
'Cause
that.
if there
Or
was
even a
Psychonauts
spin-off
3,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
I would love to see that. Yeah, I've loved, and the combat too isn't too hard. I mean, there are it depends on how you do it is the thing.
Right.
Like you can play it safe, like, and I typically do because I'm not huge into challenging combat. So for the most part, I just run around, circle everybody on my levitation ball, throw some side blasts at them, and then finish them off. Like
Fair enough.
it's pretty simple if you want it to be. You can also get your hands dirty. There's all kinds of combos, and you can upgrade your abilities and do some really weird stuff. It's pretty fun.
And I think some people might be iffy about playing a game that deals so heavily with mental illnesses and stuff like that, delusions. But really, in my opinion, they handled it really well with class, and like they never like made fun of anyone. There was never a joke at anyone's expense. It was all empathetically written, where it's like you feel bad for this person, and when you go into their mind to help them, you feel like you've done some good. It's like, oh yeah, he's not anxious anymore. Yeah, like, oh great. Or oh, this person isn't depressed anymore. It's like, oh, or they're not sensory overloaded anymore. We've sorted that out.
Or their brain isn't literally fractured because there was stuff going on there.
Stuff going on.
Yeah, so a lot of it is repairing people's brains, which is crazy.
And really
amazing
interesting concept.
Yeah, literally throw a tiny door frame on the back of someone's head and you portal inside.
Hop right in,
It's really cool.
And everyone has their own unique brainscape. The bosses are all interesting to see what forms they take. Even using powers out of combat was interesting, because sometimes you could walk around the Mother Lobe and just use clairvoyance, where you can see through other people's eyes, and it's interesting seeing how other people see Raz.
Yeah.
Like, at first, Agent Forsyth sees him as like a little chick just coming out of the egg, but then, after you complete her brain, she sees you as a full-fledged psychonaut in a suit and everything with like the comb hair, and it's great. I love that. I love seeing little gameplay things like that, and I think that's true for almost every character you talk to, where their vision of what Raz is evolves as time goes on.
Definitely.
And it's super interesting.
Some great voice acting too. Jack Black came in there for a great role.
MVP.
Oh man, his whole thing was great.
That's my favorite level.
I love that level. All of them are super. I mean, just visually, just mind-boggling. I'll be completely honest.
Yeah, they all take different directions. I love it. They made good use of portals. And
oh yeah, they're seamless.
Yeah, you can't even tell as you're walking through. And I just hope that they continue. I just want more.
I want more too. DLC,
spin-off,
third game.
TV show.
I'll take whatever.
A movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up on our list is Resident Evil Village.
Ooh. Yeah.
Now, I feel like this one was kind of a shoe-in because...
Oh, without a doubt.
This was a really good game, to be honest.
Resident Evil Village is a first-person horror survival game developed and published by Capcom. It is the sequel to Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, where you control Ethan Winters, who's searching for his kidnapped daughter, and after a fateful encounter with Chris Redfield, finds himself in a village filled with mutant creatures. Like you said, this one was absolutely inevitable because the absolute vice grip that
Lady Dimitrescu.
that Lady D had on the internet. I mean, this game, this character, she was a cultural moment.
And this was months before it even came out.
Yeah, she was popular before it even came out.
As soon as we got screenshots, people were like, "Are you is this for
the
real?"
The big lady.
And supposedly,
she'd be real big.
Capcom claimed they didn't realize that this was going to be like a
Come
big
on.
hit.
Lies.
It's a lie. I don't believe it.
Marketing genius, without a doubt, and we knew this game had to be included. She had the internet absolutely going wild at every turn. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing her, honestly.
Yeah.
For a long time.
And it was such a phenomenon to where it was really most of what I knew about the game before I started it. And she really, I mean, she has a good-sized role, but she's not the main focus of the game.
It's true, yeah.
So I was kind of like, oh man, I was hoping I would get to see more of her.
I'm not sure if that's clever marketing or bad marketing.
I mean,
I think it's clever.
Yeah.
Honestly,
they saw what the people latched onto, and they
I guess so.
shelled out more.
The press. I mean, honestly, everyone needed this game. You had to play this game. I know, not even casuals, just regular folks who don't really play games all that.
Did you hear about that big lady on Twitter?
They knew. Everybody knew about it. It was crazy. It was such a moment.
And the mod where every time you look at her, her hat gets bigger.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Next
They
thing
did
you
a
know,
lot of
it's
great
the
stuff
size
with
of
the
the
mods in this
freaking
game.
room.
It is funny because in reality, she's like one of 5 kind of main villains.
It's true.
So,
And it's interesting because, in my opinion, most of the villains have good screen presence. I liked Heisenberg. I
Yeah.
liked her. I liked Donna, the creepy doll lady. I liked Moreau. He's creepy fish guy.
extremely. He was
Totally
really
gross.
disturbing to me.
Yeah, because he was like a total simp
Yeah.
for Mother Miranda.
Gross.
Mother.
Yeah. Mother made me.
Grow up.
Yeah, not a big fan of it, but I mean, in my opinion, they could have done more with the others, but
Yeah.
I mean, they did it well. I don't think they.
It felt well-rounded.
Yeah,
It did, yeah. They split it into chunks and they gave each character their moment to shine and everything. I do, like you said, kind of wish some of the baddies had longer sequences, but only because I thought they were really good and memorable and
Like
gross and disturbing.
like that dollhouse section
yeah,
where
that
we
was...
were all creeped out.
That was messed
Giant
out.
baby.
Mm-mm.
No, thank you.
I don't like it.
We were all terrified.
Yeah, well, so we played this game together again. We love to play the choice-based games, especially horror, together because it's just more fun that way, isn't it? And so we were definitely screaming and
Yes.
hiding.
Yelling out, no.
Hiding under beds, especially because it laughs and it cries. As it's chasing you down, and if you get caught, it just literally picks you up and puts you down its gullet, and it's horrifying. And I hate it. But at the same time, I love it.
It was almost like a souped up, like, imposing version of the creepiness of the baby in PT.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just the
Definitely.
haunting, crying sound, like, right behind your ear. That was just too much. Too much. In the best way.
Yeah. And a lot of people were not happy with the fact that it probably wasn't as scary as RE7, but in my opinion, it played a lot better than RE7.
I agree.
RE7, it was a great game, and the Baker family were great antagonists, but I think we can all agree that design-wise, they're not very memorable.
Yeah, agreed. I think we talked about this when we first played it, I think RE7 was scarier for me, but I can honestly barely remember what they looked like even.
Yeah.
But I do remember feeling scared. I just can't remember them at all. Whereas these villains, I was less scared of them, but maybe just because they were so enigmatic and I was drawn to see what they were all about.
What's up with you, Fishman?
You definitely remember these villains.
Yes.
They are extremely memorable.
And I think, too, the plot just seems a lot more laid out. Like, you know what you're getting, these items, an item from each house. And once you get them all, I mean, RE7 to me just felt a little bit more like, well, we'll see what happens when we get this. We don't, I mean, we'll find that out later, but I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. And there was a lot of weird stuff with RE7 because with the choice at the end and a lot of weird stuff that didn't really fit with the rest of the game. Whereas in this game, it felt like they definitely sat down and was like, okay, where do we start? Where do we end?
And
It was
need
more
to-
cohesive,
Yeah,
for sure.
a concise story here because they did kind of flub it up at the end of 7.
Well,
so,
yeah.
Well,
in my opinion.
And the end of Village, it's a distinct, definitive ending. You as a character get resolution, and the final boss was just...
It was good.
It was good. It was
Yeah,
fun
Mother
to
Miranda
watch.
was fun to fight,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And also, the enemy variety in Village is way better than Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7, you fought mold people, and the Bakers. And that's it. And who are also mold people.
Right.
So
Hate to break it to you.
it was not particularly fun. I didn't have fun running through the Baker house fighting these moldy guys. But I did have tons of fun running through this village, fighting off hordes of werewolves and all the crazy stuff.
Creatures
in
on
the
the roof.
factory,
Oh, yeah.
Heisenberg's factory and all that crazy stuff, his experiments. Like, that was fun to fight.
Even those mini fights, they were all terrifying as well.
Yeah.
Very scary. Those creatures just hanging out on the roofs. And especially towards the end of the game where you're not well prepared to fight things at that point. It's just like, oh no, this is a bloodbath.
How are we gonna
do this?
Just run.
Yeah.
Throw a flashbang and run.
Yeah, I loved being able to run into a little house in the village, and the village is just, I mean, insane design-wise.
I believe it was modeled after some real Romanian villages.
Yeah, it
so.
felt authentic, like crazy. But yeah, I liked being able to go into each individual little house and board it up and look for supplies, and you stay in there for a little bit. You'll get some attackers trying to get in there. It was fun.
And all the areas you explore are pretty fun, like Moreau's Reservoir, the factory, Heisenberg, Lady D's castle, obviously. Even the werewolf stronghold was fun to fight through. I mean, they just had a lot of interesting places to explore, whereas in Louisiana, in RE7, there's the Baker House, there's the guest house, there's Lucas's weird saw basement where he does weird things, and that's about it.
Unexplained.
You know what I mean? So even environment-wise, they really stepped it up, in my opinion.
For sure. After you watch our video, I feel that you should go look up the video for the voice actor of Lady D reading thirsty tweets, and it is so funny. She's amazing, and it's a great video.
A talent that I hope we get to see again. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
It would appear that Ethan's story is done. Doesn't mean that maybe some of these other people can't come back, or prequel or something, you know?
You know, another thing about her, now that I'm thinking about it, is like, even the thing with her daughters and how they would all come after you, and then they kind of like shredded apart. It was just so good.
Yeah, they were weird fly monsters or something.
Yeah.
Very bizarre, but also interesting to see. Especially when you learn about how it all started and how it went down, the backstory that you learn as you play through. I found that pretty interesting.
Because it was a treatment, right, that she gave to them
that
made them like that?
She gave them like a weird mold thing.
I
like
want to know where the treatment is to be large person.
Well, you know, I think she
Only
got it.
the chosen.
Yeah, she had some sort of weird blood disorder,
right.
And she got it, and then that made her very large, I guess. Or she started out 7 foot tall.
Also, moral of the story, basically everything is mold.
Yeah,
mold.
Everything is mold.
It all boils down to mold.
Mold. Yeah. I mean,
Ethan is mold. The child is mold.
It's all mold.
The walls are mold. The floor is mold.
All of Ethan's story revolves around mold.
And the worst part is, he's the last to know.
He's the last to know.
The floor is not lava. The floor is mold.
Also, Chris Redfield is a big dummy for not telling us at first what was going on.
That was so absurd.
But apparently the reasoning behind that was...
He didn't trust us?
He thought we might have been infected by Mother Miranda. And so he didn't quite trust us to know, like, are you on our side or not? Like, have you been corrupted?
Are you working for the mold?
Yeah, we don't know yet.
I get it, but just the execution, horrible.
Oh, yeah. From our perspective, from the perspective of
Guns
the player
blazing.
experiencing it, it's like, Chris... You are a big dummy. You should have told us.
I think that the narrative was fine, but the character, you're like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Which you find out later, but it's still like, you absolute dumbass.
Exactly.
Even like, I mean, why is this the point that they're stepping in? Also, like, they surely knew for a while.
You would think. But they... At one point, you do take control of Chris, and you're playing as him, fighting off essentially the entire village.
I really
by
like
yourself.
that part.
Yeah, because it really showed the difference between someone who has been through a Resident Evil scenario before and someone like Ethan who just sort of gets continuously dropped into them. Chris, he's got grenades, he's got submachine guns, he's got the crazy military pistol that can take out anything in one shot. I mean...
He's got chain metal on all of his appendages. You're not taking off his arm.
He's punched enough boulders in his life to know what he's doing.
Well, you also get to play him, too, after you play the segment where Ethan is kind of unarmed, just running, you know, wounded through the through the town. So it's like, oh, man.
Yeah. Now you know what a professional looks like.
Yeah.
Even though he's a big dummy. But, you know, these things happen.
He makes some choices.
Yep.
Made for a good game.
It did make for a good game. And it was a fun experience to play through together.
It was.
Next up on our list is SMT5. It's the first mainline SMT game on a home console in forever. I mean, in case people aren't aware of what SMT is, it is a series of RPGs developed and published by Atlas. It is the original predecessor to the Persona games, because the technical name for the Persona series is Shin Megami Tensei Persona. And they dropped that after a while because they were like, we don't need all that. It's just Persona.
It's pretty long.
Pretty lengthy.
Like I said, this is the mainline series from which all these other things span off from, but this is the original, and it feels like it. It feels like the first foray back into this in quite a while, because I think the last mainline one was Nocturne SMT3 on the PS2, which was obviously forever ago. But it feels great. It looks great. All the new animations, the new demons they added. I love every second of it. Now, you guys don't know much about mainline SMT, but essentially the story is, for this one at least, the forces of law versus the forces of chaos have clashed in Tokyo. And that is sort of the background. It happened about 18 years ago, and it's the background setting for what is happening currently in the world of SMT. Essentially, when you think of the forces of law, what do you think of immediately?
I mean, law enforcement and like freaking judges and lawyers.
Courts.
In this case, we are talking about holy judgment.
Oh,
holy
no.
law.
The glowing
Yes.
sword.
And I do mean that in the most literal sense, because the god of law in the SMT franchise goes by the name Yahweh.
No, he
What?
does not.
And the forces of chaos are led by a certain fellow named Lucifer.
You don't say.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, indeed. So it is directly...
Do you get to pick a team?
You do.
Is this blasphemous?
I was
Probably.
really like thinking you
But-
wouldn't be able to, but
Yes, you can. You can
Okay.
choose. Do you want to go chaos? Do you want to go order? Do you want to go neither? Do you want to go in between?
Well, tell us what you picked.
Well, personally, I wanted to first start off with the humanity route because I felt like that was sort of the most me. But I'm definitely going to go back and go through all of the other runs because they're all usually interesting anyway. And they all have unique demons that you can unlock that you can only go with during that run. But it is an insane story because it's not just... It incorporates... there's the faction of law, like I just said, which incorporates angels, Abdiel, Metatron, all of the known angels in the canonical lore, all of the demons led by Lucifer, like Beelzebub, and then the third route is led by what's known as the myriad gods, which is essentially like Buddha, Vishnu.
What?
Yeah, Yaksani. It's all of the Nua, the mother goddess from Chinese mythology and stuff like that. So it literally is like a battle royale of heaven and hell, of all different versions of them, battling for supremacy over the earth. And you, as the Nahobino, who is the first human, I guess, to ever fuse with like a demon, you are the one, or is he a demon? I don't know. It's not. But you are the first one to fuse with one in quite some time, and you possibly now have the power to ascend the throne imperial and take the power yourself. But obviously that's your choice because this is a very heavily choice-based game. And let me just say this, it
I'd
is
do it.
much more difficult than your typical Persona game. Now, granted, they added a safety DLC, which is safety mode, essentially very, very easy. You're not going to die. It's story only,
Which
essentially.
we love.
Yes, we love it. But for me, I loved having that classic difficulty because when was the last time you saw a game over screen in Persona 5? Like,
oh, pretty much never.
Never?
Yeah. I died like once or twice.
In this game, unless you're like really grinding and getting all these crazy demons with crazy powers, you are probably going to die a lot.
Cool.
Your first time fighting against any boss, you're pretty much guaranteed to die until you know, okay, this is what he's weak to. This is what he uses. I need to make sure that I have all of my stats set up. I make sure that all of my demons are fused and I have the most powerful recent ones that can fight against him effectively, etc., etc. So there's a lot of like min-maxing potential, and it's honestly a lot of fun. It's been very addictive. I've been playing a lot of it lately.
Get good or get humbled before the gods.
Exactly.
Truly. Most people don't like to talk about religion, but they were just like, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's bring it.
I wonder if, because it's a Japanese game.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
So, I mean, the view of religion in Japan, maybe it's quite different than the Western.
well,
I would assume.
Are they primarily Buddhist?
I think it's a combination of Shintoism, which is unique to Japan, I believe, and also Buddhism. So.
Interesting. Okay. That makes
A bit
sense.
more
then.
open-minded, perhaps.
Well, it's definitely interesting playing through it from a Western perspective because this is not stuff you typically see
This
in
is
games.
usually avoided.
People like to tiptoe past these ideas where it's like, well, that might be interesting, but we don't want to step on too many toes.
We won't actually call him Lucifer.
Whereas this one, they're just like, Lucifer, Lord of Darkness, the one fallen angel. And when he first appears, like in front of the angels, he's like, listen, you idiots, I've just been to heaven. I just killed God. You need to come with me, or you're going to die. And immediately, of course, they all attack him. He wipes them all out in a second, like, oh, so uncouth of my former brethren. And you're like, oh, my God, this is crazy.
I like it.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's definitely addicting in that same way that Persona 5 is, but it's definitely got a lot less of the, I want to say, like, filler. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of school activities. There's basically none of that. There's no a side story where you're hanging out with your friends, filling out your confidants and all that stuff. Like, no.
You don't need to build up your charm.
No, you're in a post-apocalypse, and you need to deal with it.
Time's of
with
the
your
essence.
long, gorgeous locks of hair.
I saw that in your notes. I need to get an eye on these locks. I think I've seen them.
The crazy blue hair. Yeah, no, the main character is insane, the design, but I kind of dig it. Because it stands out really starkly against the background when you're playing. And it looks great. Even though he Naruto runs everywhere. He's got his hands out in the back. But, I mean, no, I love it. I love it. And all of the unique skills that they give all of the new demons and some of the old ones, as well as the main character himself, they're all flashy, interesting to look at, and a lot of stuff that Persona 5 didn't even have, like unique, interesting looks, new characters that they've introduced. Even because SMT has a long-running history of they'll introduce characters to you who are sort of your friends, and each of them go off in their own direction, where it's like, this person has chosen law. If you choose the law route, you can be friends with them, and they'll be in missions and stuff and story. But if you choose chaos, they'll probably be fighting you at the end at some point, which is interesting. So they always set up...
are tantalizing.
Yeah, they set up like a dynamic, and yeah, I love it. I love the way they handle it. Especially because it's their first time developing a mainline SMT game in so long. Like, it's been forever.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, the last one they developed was for the 3DS. And obviously, that's quite the jump to go from that to a console game. But yeah, really well done. Really well done.
I need it.
Next up, and last on our list.
Next and last, final, Animal Crossing New Horizons Happy Home Paradise DLC and the 2.0 update. So, hold on. I know it's a bit of a cheat, but really, it's a real game changer, and it's so good. It's really encompassing everything that the players have been asking for over the past 2 years. And basically, the Happy Home Paradise DLC lets players get to work by helping create vacation homes for clients on resort islands. And the 2.0 update that dropped in November just over the top everything that we've been wanting for so long. More storage, more patterns, ceiling items, accent walls, columns, new villagers, Brewster, over 9,000 new items, Cap'n, new uses for Nook Miles, cooking, recipes, just chef's kiss.
Beautiful.
I also got a chance to play Happy Home Designer, which was on a 3DS, and I had always hoped that they would be able to bring sort of some of those design elements into the mainline games, and now we finally are getting that. You are able to fly to Happy Home Paradise, this separate resort island, and then you work and you do little missions, little houses here and there for each new client, and you gradually unlock things, which makes the entire process of designing each house very fulfilling because you get to get new things along the way. Like, you get to unlock columns and you get to unlock ceiling items, which, yeah, I don't know, it gives you an incentive to keep playing and do these one-off kind of designs, which are really fun as well. Because, you know, you only have one house, or if you build, you know, dummy characters, which some of us do in order to have multiple houses, you just get your one house, you know? So if you want to change it up, you have to go through the whole rigmarole of tearing the whole thing down and then plotting it all out again. But if you get to help some clients out, then you kind of get to do that in a new way, which is really fun. And it got me back into the game, I have to say, after a 6-month lull, because I logged back in once that 2.0 update hit, and my villagers were like, "Hey, buddy, haven't seen you in a while. It's been about 6 months."
My God.
Oh my.
I loved New Horizons, but it was lacking a bit, you know. The fans had, rightfully, some ideas of things that they wanted added, and we're finally getting that. And it's good to see. I know that Nintendo said that it's the last free update, but, you know, personally, I will pay for DLC just because.
Yeah, that kind of shocked me as well. I mean, they've got us right where they want us.
They absolutely do, and they know it.
Why would they decide to walk away now? I don't know.
Under their thumb.
Another thing, too, that I really loved about this whole DLC is, you know, you can only have so many villagers on your island, But in this resort, it's basically like a second island in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You get to interact with these villagers. They're hanging out on the beach. They're in your community buildings, working. They're all over the place. It kind of is like a second island where you can get, you know, an extra set of villagers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it every step of the way. What I'm really the most looking forward to is getting to redesign my villagers' houses back home on my island.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's coming because I do have a couple, I think 2 villagers who still have, they don't have like the houses that they should have, you know what I mean?
Right,
like
because they were your
in.
first villagers.
Yeah, and I've been scared to move them out because I don't have their amiibo cards and I really love them. So they've just had their weird little like wood cabins that don't match their personality.
Right.
So I'm really excited to redo some of the, like, Wade needs a new house.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Come on. It's been too long.
Yeah, I feel that way about my original ones too. And I think what I'm planning to do is look up what their house would have looked like and recreate
Supersize it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even know, like, maybe we can do 2-story houses. I don't know what the limitations are yet. So it could get kind of interesting.
I think also getting the new currency and all those new items is just, it's so nice because after you have played for a year, it's coming up almost 2 years, you really kind of max out. You know, you've played all the holidays and you've done everything there is to do. So this just really adds a second life to the whole game, and it extends the longevity of the game, being able to play even more, and just like getting new villager dialogue and interactions as well. That's like they can now come visit your house. It's just so freaking cute.
That is
like
cute.
Every time I play, I feel like they're barging in on me now, which
Same.
I love.
Same. Yeah, and the new NPCs too on the island. They are so cool. I love them. I really went into it just thinking, I'm here to build some houses. Like, get out of my way. But I love them. I don't know if you've gotten to hang out with Wendell yet, but like...
Just a little bit. But I love the little monkey.
Nico, yeah.
Yeah, he's
so cute.
Adorable.
He's so little.
And also, the update that they did to Harp's Island.
Yes. Amazing. Yeah, I've almost got all of them.
Yeah, me too.
All of the stalls in.
Back in the day, did some turnip trading, as it were, so pretty stocked up on bells. So I was able to set that up pretty quickly, and yeah, it's a game changer as well, because I think another complaint that people had was how infrequently Red visits your island. So it's really hard to complete the art museum.
Very hard.
Portion.
Mine's not even half done.
Mine isn't either, and you know, you have to grind that out big time. And so having him there permanently now, man, that's a real game changer.
It is. I have had, though, a couple days where everything he has is fake, and I'm like, oh, you kidding me? Wasted day.
You know, I kind of like some of his fake ones. I just kind of put them around the island.
I do too. I use them in my island, but I want to get it filled up.
Also being able to change the color of some of the previous items that you get from Nook Miles.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that's
absolutely different.
Before you had to meet up with people on the internet. And
Nookazon.
Right, exactly. Nookazon. And I think that's kind of what Nintendo wanted. They wanted to encourage the community and trade with your friends and things like that. Which, yeah, that's fun, but, you know, to a certain point,
well, yeah, I think
it's a business on there.
I think they saw, what people needed, essentially, and how they were filling that need through Nookazon, and they're like, no, they should go through us. They shouldn't go through this outside website. They should get that done through us, so they kind of created that. I'm assuming that's what happened.
Well, and it's better anyways. It's cheaper, you know?
Oh, yeah.
A lot cheaper.
Sometimes you would spend, like, real-world money on some of those things.
Which is
like,
wild.
What?
No. I mean...
Kidding me?
I'm happy that they included that, and I like to see Harriet back.
Me too.
And freaking old Tortimer.
Old Tortimer's back.
Yeah.
He's alive.
He is alive. No more memes of his gravestone, okay?
He's
we
not
confirmed
dead.
He's alive. And Katrina's back. Even having Kix there all the time is really nice. He showed up pretty frequently on my island. He was there
Me too.
quite a bit. But
I'm still missing items from him.
yeah, absolutely. And they've added even more. It really just got me back into the game. And I'm encouraged to redo parts of my island.
Oh, me too.
And, just kind of revamp things. Like, I had a little boardwalk section where it was like a little carnival.
I think everybody has a section like that.
I think so, too.
And they knew that, and they're like, here you go.
I think that's exactly why they added some of those new items. So, yeah, now I'm like, maybe I should make it bigger and better. And, yeah, those new items are just so good.
And that, folks, is our favorite games of 2021. Yay! If you liked this video, please don't be afraid to like, subscribe, favorite, ring the bell, follow us on Twitter, TikTok, all that stuff, Twitch. We're streaming every now and then. Please don't be afraid to tell us in the comments section below what your favorite games were, if you thought our picks were good, bad, or any other way.
Were they trash? Let us know.
Exactly. And thank you very much for watching. My name is Caleb.
I'm Summer.
And I'm Stormy.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.